Hi everyone, my name is Guido Maniscalco and I'm a 35-year-old vintage timepiece collector, and this is my first YouTube video to discuss the art and the hobby of collecting vintage timepieces. I've been collecting for almost 20 years, or since I was a teenager, and I was inspired by others on YouTube that have put their videos to showcase their timepieces, discuss their opinions, and talk about why they are passionate about collecting vintage watches. You can look at it two ways. You can look at collecting as an investment, or because it's something that you love, because it's something that you're proud to have on your wrist. You can be collecting vintage Seikos, you can be collecting vintage Rolex, but as long as you like it and you appreciate the art and the beauty, that's what's important. I want to showcase some of the pieces in my collection, give my opinions, and share the stories. Almost everything I get is from the original owner or from the family or estate of the original owner, and I always ask the story behind it. When you look at a watch that's covered in scratches that might be 50, 60 years old, you have to think about it took over half a century to put those scratches on. What witness to history was this timepiece? What story could it tell? I have a gentleman that has his father's Rolex GMT Master, and that GMT Master was purchased new for just over $200 in the 1960s with the box and papers. And my friend will tell me, my father had it on when I was born or when my parents got married. He was wearing it at my high school graduation. He was wearing it until the day he died. So when you talk about something personal, there are a few items as personal as a watch. And I want to dive into this video as my first video to discuss what I collect, the stories behind them, and to share with you my passion, not just for me, but the passion that so many others throughout the world have as they collect, with the beauty of vintage timepieces. Enjoy. Here's something unusual and rare and different from what I've shown today. This watch is original. Original with the pushers, with the Valjoux 71 movement, with the crown, with the tied button pusher on the side, case back, original finish with engraving with the name of the original owner, stainless steel, mark Abercrombie and Fitch, movement is by Hoyer, made in the 1950s. This is a reference 346, second execution because on the first execution dial, the tied indicator was only displayed half. This shows the entire tied indicator, which shows that it is not the first series, but it's the second series. There's one big problem with this watch. The dial has been refinished. Although it was refinished a long time ago, you can tell that by the markers and the luminescent paint, which has aged. Still, it has been refinished, and collectors out there would prefer 100% completely original, even if it's a tropical dial or aged or worn, but an original dial is an original dial. I purchased this because of the scarcity, because I love the movement, because I love the size of the case. It's very large. And I hope that one day I'll be able to find an original dial to put on this, which is a very slim possibility, but I'll keep looking no matter how long it takes. My favorite thing of this watch is when you wind the movement. It's a very loud clicking sound. Abercrombie & Fitch was the sporting goods store in the United States back in the day. Now it's known for its clothing catered to high school and college kids, but back then for the outdoors you'd go to Abercrombie & Fitch. The dial's been refinished. On an original dial it would say Abercrombie & Fitch Company and a different layout on the font, and it would say Seafarer in the middle. That is missing, and then on the bottom of the dial, on an original dial would say Made in Switzerland. These are Valjoux 71, predecessor to the Valjoux 72, which you'll see in the Rolex Daytonas later in the 1960s and 70s. It's a shame that the dial was refinished, but this was common when you would take your watch into a jeweler for service. They would say, we'll refinish the dial, we'll make it look new, we'll fix your watch, and your watch will come back in new condition. Sadly, fast forward now to 2020, you look for originality. It's a shame because the case has never been polished. It's crisp, it has its scratches, but it's original. The pushers, the crown, original, case back, everything. Even the hands look to be original and untouched. But that dial's been refinished, and that significantly decreases the value of the watch. So a watch like this in original condition could go for $40,000, $50,000 in past auctions. Being that this is one of the earlier executions, you never know. Even if it had a tropical or aged dial, it would still be worth a significant amount of money, but because the dial's been refinished, it decreases the value quite a bit, to the point that I don't know if a collector would want it. A lot of people would turn away from refinished dials unless they had an original to replace it with. But either way, it's a scarce watch, and I'm glad to have it in my collection. It's something a little bit different, but it goes to show you, never refinish a dial. Leave it original no matter the condition. I like to leave it original, but because this is rare, I acquired it and I put it in my collection. It's nice as a daily wear It's a very sturdy watch, and it's large for the 1950s, something that you would not see so common back then, as watches were still a little bit smaller. This is a larger size. It's a beautiful watch. Hopefully I can restore it to original condition with an original dial and go from there. Thanks. Early to mid 1960s, Vacheron in 18 karat yellow gold with a caliber 1072 automatic winding movement with an 18 karat yellow gold rotor. The reference number is 6694, and this is often nicknamed the Batman. There are different dial variations, different hand variations available on this, but it is known as the Royal Chronometer, which is very prominent on the dial. You'll see it under the Maltese cross, and then on the back you have this case back which shows the embossed writing as well as the very well-known Vacheron symbol. Beautiful lugs, nicknamed the Batman because of the shape of the lugs. They look like ears. Automatic winding looks beautiful on the wrist. For the 1960s, this is a traditional size, just under 36 millimeters or so, but it's a nice prominent watch that you can wear on your wrist with jeans or with a suit. I like to wear this often. It's a good classic look, nice for those who love the 1960s designs, and something unusual. You'll see gold Datejust, you'll see gold Pateks, but this is a Vacheron piece that's a little bit more unique. You can find them if you look for them. They're not too expensive, and they would make a nice addition to any collection for a vintage collector. You'll see the hallmark on the side. You see the crispness still of the case. It's fitted on a beautiful alligator strap. You can fit it on whichever other strap. I like this brown color. It goes well with the light patina on the dial, but it's an understated piece, and those who appreciate beautiful designs of the 1960s would certainly appreciate this. It is not the most common Vacheron, so it's not one that you'll see too often, which makes it a little bit more unique, but they're still available if you look, and they're not ridiculously expensive. A nice collection piece for anyone that likes the 1960s gold pieces and automatic from that era. 1966 reference 5513 Rolex Submariner in stainless steel with gilt letter dial. Original dial, original hands, original insert. The case has been polished at least once or twice in the past. It is featured on a stainless steel Swiss oyster rivet bracelet, stamped 166, first quarter of 66. The inside case back is stamped first quarter of 66. So this is original to the watch from new. I also have the original Rolex warranty papers from the era, as this was acquired from the original owner. Rolex Submariners are very popular and very common, but they are not as common with the gilt letter dial, because later during service and over time people would replace the dials. Also, the dials have a gloss finish and they would chip. You can see some chipping here right around the 9 and 10 o'clock markers right at the edge, which was common when it was serviced, if the dial was removed, or just normal wear and tear. But to find an original gilt dial is nice. You see so many of the white print variations out there, but the gilt offers a rich golden brown lettering and patina on the face, which makes it a little bit different. Rolex Submariners were very common and very popular, worn by many well-known individuals back in the day. Later on in the James Bond movie series, Roger Moore wore a 5513 Submariner. The famous photographer and playboy Gunther Sachs also had a Submariner, as well as a 1675 plastic crystal GMT, which I'll feature in a later video, and so many others as well. If you look closely at photographs of celebrities in the 1960s and 70s and you notice a Submariner, you can look for the 2-line or the 4-line. The 2-line signifies usually as a 5513. There's also the reference 5512, which I'll showcase in a later video, which was worn by Steve McQueen and sold at auction in 2009. The Submariner remains as one of the most iconic timepieces of all time. First introduced in the early 1950s, 1 year before the GMT Master. The GMT Master followed in 1954, but it stood the test of time. It comes in different variations. It was changed from what you see here in the gilt gloss dial to a matte white letter dial, and it went back to a gloss dial in the 1980s as the 5513 reference wrapped up and going forward, but with white gold surroundings, as you'll see. Gloss dial all the way through from there, and then they went to the ceramic bezels and the beefier super case submariners that you see today, which they have waiting lists for if you go to authorized dealers.